Hi everyone and welcome to Stitch and Thread. My name is Anna. I'm coming to you from the UK, sunny UK for once. And on this channel we are mostly talking about knitting. Today I have a regular podcast episode for you. I have 3 finished projects to share, quite a few works in progress, and at the very end I also have a small snippet of my recent trip to Unravel Festival. So that's quite a lot to fit in, so please make yourself a nice beverage of your choice, a cup of tea for me if it was me, and let's get going. And I would like to start with a project that took me over 6 months, I believe, to make. I started it in, I believe, October 2025, and I'm talking about the Kutik sweater. This is Kutik for Man by Agnete Cardigan. I'm not quite sure how to show it to you. Let me just try to fit in the frame. So this sweater, as you can see, this is a V-neck sweater with saddle shoulder construction. Judging by the gauge, is designed for sport weight yarn. I had fingering weight yarn, or rather my husband chose fingering weight yarn, and only then I was looking for patterns. So I had to adjust my size. I knitted size L in order to fit for size M for men. So just to say that. And I've knitted this on 3.25mm needles. Gosh, this is heavy to hold. Let me just put it down. First of all, let me talk about the yarn, and I can rest my hand a little bit and find that yarn. Actually, it's such a mess here. Where is my yarn? I've knitted this sweater in West Yorkshire Spinners Exquisite 4-ply yarn, which is 80% Falkland wool and 20% mulberry silk. As you can see, it's quite beautiful. It's very soft. I would call it a grey color with a hint of light blue, quite cold blue. I really like the color. I see why my husband chose it. I'm quite picky about color, so at least it was nice to knit with the color I like. You can see because of the mulberry silk, it has a bit of sheen to it, but it's beautiful. It's not like an overwhelming sheen, so I really like it. However, I do have a bit of reservations about this yarn on 2 points. Number one, because it's so soft, I'm not sure that this yarn was a good choice for this sweater. It is kind of an office sweater, so my husband will be wearing it into the office, so he won't be doing much, I guess, in terms of friction. But because it's so soft, I think it would be better off if I would be holding it with more hair because of this softness. And the second reservation, I'm not sure if the camera will show, but especially in the back I noticed a couple of times, maybe you see this like white kind of area. This is not like the dye, which didn't work very well, but there are quite a few areas where this happened, I believe, right here. I don't know, either maybe silk kind of was stopping, because it felt like silk, that those white bits. I couldn't just remove them. It would just destroy the actual fabric. So I haven't had this issue because I have this yarn in lace weight and I've knitted already, my camisole number 9, for example, and I didn't have anything of that sort, but I did have it quite a few times here. And again, if I would be holding it with more hair, you wouldn't see it. But because this sweater is obviously knitted, in stockinette stitch, any imperfections are going to be seen. So yes, for such an expensive yarn, I mean, I can't really complain because it's already discontinued. So yeah, but I kind of not sure what went wrong there. And you see what I'm talking, this sweater has been worn already a couple of times, and I already can see beginnings of the peels. So anyway, we will see. Maybe it was a bit of mistake on my part, but we live and learn. So now we've discussed the yarn and the construction. I would like to talk a bit about the pattern, and I think I talked about it before. I had a bit of an issue with this pattern because I've never really knitted saddle shoulder constructions before, and the way the pattern is done is very different, very new to me. So when you first download it, there is so much information, generic information about the pattern, the gauge, the measurements. It suggests how to make your swatch. So all of that information, and then measure and decide then on the size that you need. And after that, you'd only download your own size. This pattern is very interesting. It gives you the gauge, but it also gives you two neighboring gauges, like plus and minus stitch. So for example, I've used that neighboring gauge to take me to the right place, which is very useful. So, but at the same time, even though it's only one size, the subtle shoulder construction, it's a bit overwhelming. There's a lot of rows to go, and you just kind of tick them one after the other. And because of that, I even started my MATCHA Jumper. I remember thinking maybe a different design I've used already before could help me, but it turned out it's the same. So the pattern itself, I mean, at least I didn't find any mistakes. It's very, very well done. I think the only gripe I have with the pattern is the way it is presented, because there was a lot I was putting into the pattern. But as I say, in terms of readability and ability to actually knit the sweater, I'm sure the designer knows a lot. And I think I would specifically recommend this pattern if you're like a math nerd. I think you would like that. It's just so precise there. I think you would really enjoy it. Okay, yeah, just I think one last comment I have about this specific sweater is just that I knitted this on 3.5mm needles, and my husband is about 1.94 m tall, so he's actually a very tall man. And I think this is why I draw a line with knitting your fingering weight garments, especially for someone else. I most definitely lost some steam in the very end, and I think what I didn't show as well is that my gauge also maybe changed a bit, because by the time I got to sleeves to pick up, you know, left stitches, I had issue with gauge. I think it blocked out okay. Yeah, I can't see that, maybe a little bit. Let me see the other one. No, I think it's okay. I think I can see a little bit, but tiny amount in comparison to when I was knitting, because I tried different needles. I didn't have my Chagoos in that size. Had to buy, but my gauge was so off. I needed the same needles, Chagoo needles, to make sure that the transition is seamless. So yeah, a lot of effort for men's size jumper. Oh, and one more thing I would like to add, which I found interesting. So the actual pattern, because it's just such a finer gauge, I think it's designed almost like a blouse. So in the pattern, you actually don't do ribbing, you just gonna fold your hem. However, or rather my husband wanted a real ribbing, which is fine, I don't mind. And I've knitted it in the body. And I think last time I talked to you, I complained that my ribbing wasn't as good on the outside, on the right side, than on the inside. And I was thinking what I can do about it. Let me just show you one of the sleeves. So this is on the right side. So I've knitted it on the wrong side. So I've just used one short row. And this is how it's on the, I don't know if it's going to fall. So you can see it's a bit wonky if I'm not going to be in the camera. Yes, it's a bit wonky on the inside. So I think from now on, if I can, I think this is the way forward for me, just to knit my ribbing on the inside. And that's why I really like my ribbing on the right side. So for those of you who have the same issue, check your wrong side. I feel like it's a very easy way to adjust your ribbing, because obviously you can try to change your technique, and that's okay if you want to. But I decided to start with, you know, tiny little change and see if that helps me. And I'm really, really happy. So I just really want to adjust my knits and the way I knit or the way I purl to achieve that. I think that's easier and doesn't cost me anything. So it's a great way to do it. So yeah, I think that's enough about the pattern. I'm really happy, finished it. My husband is really, really happy. It fits him, you know, really, really well, exactly how he wanted, quite fitted. And yeah, and I'm happy that I can move on and do other things, and probably not knit any more fingering weight sweaters for my husband. Just remind me in case I'll forget this one. And we're not finishing with long standing whips here, because I finally, Ravelry tells me I started knitting these in August of 2025. I finished my Songbird Mittens. Yay! Here they are. Aren't they gorgeous? Yes, so if you've been here before, you probably heard of me talking about it quite extensively, so I won't talk much. I've used Rosa Pomar Mondim yarn. It's quite a thin fingering weight yarn, so I had to go down in needle size quite a bit. So I've knitted this ribbon on 1.75 needles, if you own one. Now I actually own those DPNs in this size, and then the rest of the body on 2mm needles, mostly actually in using my Chagoo shorties. But in the end here, I think I kind of either forgotten or I think I needed to rebag, and I used DPNs, and it really, really affects my tension and in color work. So I shouldn't really use DPNs for color work. That's one of the lessons learned from this pattern. So because it's for my daughter, I mean, she has smaller hands than me, it's okay, but I think this pattern, I believe, suggests 2.75mm needles, and I don't think that would work for fingering weight yarn, or it's going to be too gapey. You don't really, I mean, I don't particularly want this. So if you still really like these mittens and want to knit them for yourself, I would recommend maybe to use sport weight yarn, or at least fingering maybe with mohair. I don't know, have a look. A lot of people seem to have gauge issues with this pattern. I personally think something else is wrong. I mean, as you can see, mine, I guess, relatively still small hands. I think it would be nice to have a little bit more space here. But apart from that, that's fine. But again, I've added quite a few rows over here because I was knitting out on 2mm needles. So I think in order to have a comfortable sized mitten, you probably would like to get like a sport weight yarn to do that. Having said that, the chart is clear. I say the only gripe I have with this is the gauge. Something's not quite right there. So yeah, but my daughter loves them, so now I finish showing them to you. I can let you wearing them. She loves wearing all my knits, so she's very happy that she has something else that belongs to her. Okay. My third finished project, however, is something reasonably new. I don't think it even featured on my podcast because it doesn't really take long to make these, and I've already made 2 pairs. So if you're a regular viewer, you probably know what I'm talking about. These cuties. So this is another pair of slippers, Double Toffer. I'll put it on screen. I can never pronounce it very well, but it is a free pattern by Sadness Garn, and yeah, you can knit these lovely slippers. Let me just take one to show you. So you knit them in the round, and you cast on all the stitches you need and knit until this kind of area where you normally split up, and you knit what I call 2 bunny ears, like one section in the round and then second section in the round, and you do that, and then you take one bunny ear and put into the other. So in the end, these slippers are like double layered, but after that you put your bunny ears into the washing machine, and ideally before you actually put one bunny ear into the other, put it into the washing machine as it is. So I'm really happy that I finally found a trick with my washing machine. So this is my pair number 3. So what I do, I put the slippers with a towel. Towel seem to really help with the friction to make sure everything is felted. So highly recommend to put it with towel to create that friction. So in my specific washing machine, I think I have 1.5 hour long cycle with 1200 RPM in the end to make sure these are felted nicely. And really happy because finally these are the right size. It's always a bit tricky when you need to felt something, especially something that you need to wear. If they're huge or they're too small, it's not very useful. So really happy. My daughter is very happy yet again. She just really loves this color, and I must admit I love it too. And this is knitted in Drops Alaska, so alternative yarn to obviously to Sadness Garn, and I can highly recommend. I really like the yarn for felting. As you can see, felts very nicely, and I've knitted these again on 5.5mm needles. You can really knit these in like a couple of days. I personally can't because my hands really hurt on 5.5mm needles, so I took my time. I think it took me a couple of weeks to make this, but that's okay. There is no rush. Yeah, so really happy with these and my daughter's very happy. So I have another pair to do. I don't know, I feel like I'm running out of steam in terms of winter projects. I feel like spring is really approaching, so maybe the 4th pair will be done a bit later. We'll see how it goes. And now moving on to my whips, and let me start with the most exciting project. I don't know, I can't stop being excited about this project, so let me just show it to you straight away. Look at this, gorgeous, isn't it? So, and if you haven't been here before, this is my Agnete Cardigan, knitted on 3mm needles. You start with the double knit button band over here, you knit back panel, then you continue knitting 1 and 2nd front panel. At some point you join in the round and knit the brioche again and again until you hit ribbing. I believe last time I talked to you about this project, I finished I think with the back yoke, and I was kind of halfway done with one of the front panels. So as you can see, in 4 weeks I've done a lot. At least I feel like I've done a lot. Overall, I found brioche quite meditative. I mean, if you don't make mistakes, because I did have to, oh, hey kitty, because I did have to unravel a couple of times. And I think even here, maybe you can see some lines, and these are my lifeline stitches. I just removed them a couple of days ago. I'm sure they will block out, so I'm not worried about it, but I'm really, really happy. And I'm also really, really happy that you need this button band together with the brioche, because you can actually see I'm just almost finished with the body here, and I just need to do one panel right here. So up until the ribbon, you need this button band together, which is great. So only this section I will need to do, because if I would finish the whole body, I was like, oh, I need to pick up all these stitches just for the double knit button band. That could take some time and dedication, but you know, I don't need to, which is great. There are a couple of modifications that I did. One is quite simple. So in Agnete Cardigan PetiteKnit, she has a couple of videos that support this design, and in those videos she recommends to do this button band holes. Forgot how to say. Yeah, I think holes for your button band when you cut your yarn all the time. And I've heard there is obviously an alternative way to do that, and apparently PetiteKnit has another video, probably for a different design, I would guess, but it also kind of says that it's a new way of doing it when you don't need to cut yarn, and that's the technique I followed, and I will link it in the description just for your convenience in case you're here for Agnete Cardigan, so you can find it. I found it very useful. I think it's just slightly different amount of stitches, so you might need to actually watch both videos, or you just need to read the pattern, I guess, which tells you what to do, which was very useful. The second modification was a bit more tricky. So when I transition from a brioche to ribbon, you do need to do quite a lot of increases for the ribbon, and you know, I did this, I started ribbon, I was like, that doesn't look good. I really didn't like the eyelets where you increase the brioche stitch. It really didn't look good. And what I did, I asked a couple of my friends, as well as my husband especially, because he doesn't know anything about knitting. I was like, can you have a look, you know, and tell me which side do you like more? Do you like the right side where you can clearly see these eyelets, or the wrong side where you don't see them at all? And he preferred the wrong side. In the end, I had to unravel and make that round of increases not on the right side but on the wrong side, in order to have the eyelets on the inside and not on the outside of the garment. I hope it makes sense. But on the outside, you know, on the right side, it looks like this. Let's see if the camera will show. And on the inside, all these eyelets, which I didn't like. I don't know if the camera will show, but that's where they are. I looked on Ravelry quite a bit, and it seemed to be many people are fine with those eyelets. So I thought at first that it's just maybe me being picky. I could be picky, I guess. Last week I went to my knitting group, and one of the ladies, it turned out, she knitted this cardigan, and she's like, yes, I remember you have this whole, you know, I really didn't like them, those eyelets. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not the only one who didn't like them and had to, you know, unravel the ribbon. You never want to do, you know, to unravel your ribbon, and especially, and then unravel brioche. So I wasn't particularly happy doing that. But I knew that if I've already noticed this and I don't like it, it's best to be fixed now. Otherwise it would be too late. I would be looking in it forevermore. So I'm really happy with my decision, and can highly recommend if you're knitting this cardigan, if it, at least if it's something that bothers you. It bothered me. Like now I have this nice clean transition to ribbon, and I'm really, really happy. So I don't know if I can say that by next podcast it might be a finished garment, but I found brioche very easy and meditative. I mean, it's just a question of time. Obviously it takes time on 3mm needles, but we'll see, we're gonna get there. And now moving on to another whip, and it's a completely new whip because I don't think it existed even in my head back then. And you know what, I don't really apply a lot to test knits because they usually have quite tight deadlines. I also like to knit on the projects that I'm already knitting. I don't really like to put them somewhere in a back drawer. It stresses me out. However, Lily Kate France announced her new cardigan, and she announced it in the yarn as well that I really wanted to try. So kind of the stars came together, and I applied and even was accepted. So then I had to purchase some yarn. Let me just show you the yarn. So this is Loch Lomond from BC Garn. My personal one is in color 5, which is black. It's a nice tweedy color. It's 100% organic wool, very nice and soft. It's woolen spun. So I've only worked once with woolen spun, and it was my Dererum Natura Ulysse, also woolen spun, but that was merino, very, very soft. This one, I wouldn't say it's not, it is still soft, but not as soft, I guess, is that yarn, and feels a bit more sturdy, if I can say that. And combined with knitting the cardigan itself, it's obviously a different knitting experience, so to speak. So let me actually now show you the cardigan so you can see. And I've right here, there you go. You can see quite a lot have been knitted, all the shoulder shaping. So for this cardigan, it's knitted actually the traditional saddle shoulder construction way, where you start with these, I'm not sure if you can see, especially being black, but you start with knitting 2 saddles separately, and you do pick up afterwards, you know, on the sides as well. So, and then you shape the short shaping, increase for sleeves, for the body, and knit the actual body itself. So that's what I'm at. It's very interesting. Another reason why it's hard to do test knits, because I couldn't hit gauge with the same needle size that Lily Kate does. I think it was like half a stitch off, and half a stitch is very hard to play around. So I didn't really want to do too much playing. So I decided, for it being a cardigan, to go down. I think it's down, yeah, because I'm knitting it on a knit stitches. I knit it on 3.75mm needles, and my purl stitches on 3.5. Again, to compensate for that half the stitch, because my purl stitch is ever so slightly larger, and because of that maybe as well, it is quite a, I won't say it's a stiff fabric. I think it's nice. It's structured cardigan. It's nothing like brioche, but I'm still really happy. And maybe black is a bit of a boring color, but I think every girl needs a black cardigan, and I'm currently missing one, so I'm sure that will be very useful in my wardrobe. So far, very happy. So far, it goes very well, and yeah, very interesting how it's gonna go down, because in this cardigan you also need to knit pockets. So I've never actually knitted or attached pockets, no idea how you do it. So we'll see when the time comes. At the moment I'm on a body, so I just need to knit backs and forth, so it's quite easy. And one more reason to apply for Lily Kate France test knit is that it's quite long, so it's 6 weeks. I believe mid-April is the time I need to finish it, so I felt confident that by that time I should be fine. I'm not sure if you're in the UK, you can let me know. I don't think this yarn is very easily available to buy in the UK, or at least maybe I couldn't find the color. So in the end, I had to order it from Denmark. I was very surprised, but was also surprised to receive it within a week. It didn't really delay me from starting the cardigan on time. So yeah, that was good. Okay, and moving on to yet another whip. Okay, I'm finding it a bit funny, because in the beginning of the video, I told you that my sweater for my husband was my first ever saddle shoulder construction garment. And later I was just talking about Viva Cardigan by Lily Kate France just now. And I have on my needles yet another sweater with the same construction now for myself. And I don't know if I've even showed this before, because I started this also in October when I got confused with my husband's sweater. So this is Matcha sweater by PetiteKnit, and I started it just to try to see whether I understand the pattern correct, because I've knitted something by PetiteKnit, so I already felt confident that I know her writing style. And very interesting, because a week ago, so I looked at it and I was like, I think there must be a mistake somewhere here, and I unraveled the whole thing. So overall, I think this is a 1 week old, because I started from scratch here. And this design also, you don't need a saddle separately, you actually shape the saddles with increases here as well. So maybe it doesn't look like much, but this is a very thoughtful construction, as I said before. But I probably wouldn't recommend saddle shoulder for beginners. I think maybe Lily Kate France a pattern, because the saddles are separate, but it's probably not, you know, if you're first ever garment, that's for sure. You probably would be terrified and decide that knitting is not for you. So yeah, not much to add to this. No, actually there is something. Let me talk first about the yarn. So I'm knitting it in Holst Garn Coast in color Kingsfisher, and this is 55% lamb's wool and 45% cotton, and you have 350 meters in 50 grams. So very nice and very soft yarn, and I'm holding it with Isaiah Mohan color 11. Looks like that. Again, the camera seems to be all the time showing it a bit too blue. This color is a little bit warmer toned, I think, at least. So it's very nice, like another transitional piece for me, at least for the UK, where they could be very, very nice to wear. I really, really like the fabric. And what I want to discuss here is actually, oddly enough, my needles. So when I was at an Unravel Festival, there was a lot of talk about the new CHAGU quads. They're right here. So you see where you have like 4 sides. And also I have bought a special adapter, swivel adapter, just to try as well. So I bought only 1 pair, but I've tried quads before. I actually quite like them. I think I had something I didn't like, but I think I quite like Knit Pro ones. I was fine. I think I have 2.5mm needles in quads in Knit Pro, but I didn't like the cable. So it was really curious to try, and bought 3.5mm needles, which is I'm using for this matcha sweater. So, oh, I guess it's US 4 must be. I think this is the smallest size they do, because I wanted to buy like 3.25, knowing that summer is approaching for something smaller, but that's the smallest size they had. Yes, and it was interesting to have these swivel adapters as well. I've tried a swivel cable from CHAGU, and I really didn't like it. Like even my Agnete Cardigan, it's just, I felt like there was friction. My yarn wouldn't slide, would just catch some. I mean, it just wasn't a good experience. So I was like, okay, I tried it on, it doesn't work. But I was always kind of willing to try a swivel, because I think I have my C-knit needles, like wooden needles. I'm not a big wooden needles girly, unfortunately, but I really like the swivel feature there. So I always wanted to try, and yeah, I like it. However, there is a catch here. I like interchangeable needles, because when you need to change the cable, for example, it's very easy to attach a new cable and you're good to go. However, with the swivel, you have to have at least 2 T-pins to undo one. I think I undo the needle, then undo this swivel cable. Maybe I'm still like on the learning curve, I'm not sure, but I feel it's a bit more tricky to do, so it takes a bit longer, unfortunately. But I'm still happy to try. If you are thinking of trying, at least try like me 1 size and see if you like it, because I feel these are quite comfortable for my hands, most definitely. Just for the reference, I'm a continental knitter, so I don't know how it is for English style knitter, but for me, in terms of holding, quads really work quite well. And I think that's it for my whips. And now we are moving towards my plans and acquisitions. I've actually recently posted a video about my spring knitting plans, so that is probably the best place to know what I'm going to be knitting in the next 3 months. Please go and view it. Here though, I would like to discuss a bit of my trip to Unravel Festival, and I will just have some footage at the very end as well. As I said, I bought these needles, CHAGU quad needles, and an adapter, I think a couple of cables as well. You never have enough cables, it seems. And I've surprisingly only bought 1 skein of yarn, but I do have a bit of a withdrawal symptom. I should have maybe bought some more, but it is what it is. Maybe we'll buy later. But I bought this colorway called Crab Tracks from Camel's yarn. So as you can see, it's very kind of bouncy. So this is 70% alpaca, 20% silk, and 10% cashmere. And the reason I bought it and what I'm planning to do with it, I'm planning to knit, hopefully, an antique filigree sweater by Unwind Knitwear, or she's Rachel Ailsley. She's a UK designer, and actually a person who I went to see at Unravel Festival for her intermediate colorwork workshop, which was good to try a few techniques like lateral braids. We discussed the colorwork tension, so it was a very useful workshop to just tune up and spend a couple of hours knitting and trying new techniques. What was also nice about it, because when I looked at antique filigree later on, because I already owned the pattern, I was so surprised to find out that the designer is just so thoughtful. She already suggested leatherback jacquard stitches, because there are still quite long floats in that pattern. When I needed my Paulina pullover, which, third time round, I used leatherback jacquard technique, and I had to draw where exactly I would be using it. And it took me some time, actually. So I'm really, really happy that the designer did this work for me. So very grateful. And, she has quite a lot of colorwork sweater designs. So if all of them are written in the same way, I do really, really recommend her patterns for you if you like them. Yeah, so as I just one skein from Unravel, and this is contrasting color, and the main color would be something like dark, like black. That's what I had in mind. When I came back, I realized I already have some West Yorkshire Spinners exquisite lace yarn. In this color, this is color truffle, I believe. Again, it is discontinued yarn, it's a lace weight, so I would have to be holding it double, but I thought that this combination might work really, really well. And then unfortunately, this yarn has been discontinued, and then when I looked at Wool Warehouse website, they had like 6 skeins left, and while I didn't, I'm not planning to cast it on like tomorrow, so I was like, I need to buy it now. So unfortunately I had to buy like 3 skeins, I think, of this as well, because the original yarn I purchased for cardigan as well. I think that's it. Thank you so much for spending time with me. As you can see, I think my mood is changing towards spring time and like lighter garments, and there will be a lot of cardigans in the future. Okay, I'm leaving you, wishing you to have a great rest of your day. Happy knitting, and I'll see you at the next one. Bye. This wasn't my first Unravel Festival, but this was the first time I decided to take public transport to actually get there. It was an early start on Saturday morning, but I, of course, took some knitting with me to keep company. I thought the perfect project to take with me on a long journey would be just knitting a fingering weight sock. I was already after knitting the heel, so all I needed is to knit in the round all the time, and I thought that would be just the perfect accompaniment for my journey. I made some progress by the time I reached London Bridge, and then I had to change the trains in order to go finally to Farnham, to my final destination. As you can see, I was actually blessed with the weather on that morning. It was a really nice and sunny day. However, I mean, it was a nice but crispy sunny day, but I reached Farnham in no time, and yeah, was on my way to finally meet my fellow knitters. I was greeted by colorful display right at the entrance to Farnham Maltings. The queue actually wasn't that long, and I was quickly through to enjoy all the jewels of the festival. I mean, I should say that as soon as I arrived, I was overwhelmed. You can see a great big hall full of yarn and all other yarny goodies. I think for the first hour I was just walking around and I was trying to familiarize myself and soak up everything that I see. Here, of course, I picked up my Chiagu quartz, which I was after, but I was also very interested in Zakami. I really admire this hand dye in the UK. However, they brought a lot of boucle yarn with them this time, and I wasn't particularly interested in boucle. I didn't really have a pattern in mind, so I continued on to probably my favorite stand of the show. The camel's yarn had the most gorgeous colors, I think, amongst anything I've seen, and I should say I spent quite a lot of time just admiring all the different colorways. And I'm still thinking that maybe that green colorway was calling my name, and maybe I should have purchased another skein from them. Still, there was plenty to look at. For example, Uneven Eve had a lot of English yarns on display. Also, we were blessed this time with a visit from abroad, from Amsterdam. Stephen and Penelope brought their own yarn, which again, a lot of us were able probably to see it for the first time. So unless you've been in Amsterdam, there was a chance to see. So yeah, there are a lot of beautiful colors on display from Stephen and Penelope, and you see a lot of color work. But then we're moving on to another new hand dye for me, Vacu yarn. They had a lot of interesting yarn bases there, and a slight regret of mine, maybe I should have picked up that 100% Corriedale sock yarn from them. Also, I was so impressed by the beautiful blanket that was present there. You can actually buy the whole pattern there and just make one yourself if you want to. Then we had a quick lunch with the ladies from our knitting group. We grabbed something to eat and then I had to return, at least I had to return for my workshop with Rachel Ilsley. I learned quite a lot of new techniques to me in terms of color work, and in no time had to return back. I hope to be back at Unravel next year.